Eric Ten Hag situation?
It's crazy. I can't lie. Your club can't catch a break. Just got rid of Mason Greenwood, and that took 18 months to finally get to a resolve. You then have Ten Hag coming out being asked a question. If it was me and I was Ten Hag being asked out, I'd just say he was either ill. Yeah, could have said he had a bit of a cold, or I just picked that squad because I thought that squad was the squad for the game. I don't know. Like he didn't need to say that he's not been good in training. On the flip side of that, Jadon Sancho needs to understand there is a chain of command and he's underneath the manager. But if somebody is lying, say the manager's lying and Sancho thinks he's lying, if that was me, I'd do the same. But I don't think this has got anything to do with training. Yeah, I think this is down to maybe two things. Number one, I think he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave in January and he wanted to leave this summer and he ain't left. So maybe they priced him out of a move. Maybe they said, no, you're going to be a main part of the squad. They used him in pre-season, played him up as a false nine. Yeah, he was half decent. He's been half decent in his appearances in the league. Not great, but he ain't been great since he's got here. But when you look at the other players that are playing over him, Garnacho, I don't get the hype. Anthony, well done, mate. Like, do you ever take a man on? No, he don't. Okay, maybe he's in the team not to take a man on and keep like Grealish on the other side, but then Grealish does take men on as well. So I don't know. If that's me, I'm probably doing the same if it ain't true. But I looked last night. So I was watching a show last night and they brought up the fact that he's been fined at Dortmund for taking the mick in training, turning up late. Yeah, Man City apparently done it as well, didn't take it seriously. So he has got previous. He's actually been fined by Dortmund for turning up late and peeing around in training, basically. So he has got previous. But then it also doesn't make much sense to me that for 3 months, he had 3 months off and your manager backed him and backed him and backed him. So maybe he is the problem, Sancho. It's weird. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know because he backed him for 3 months. Yeah. So maybe it's just gone, I've had enough of backing this guy.
But that's kind of my view on this. And I want Sancho to work like the next Man United fan. We know on technical ability, better than Rashford, better than Martial, definitely better than Anthony. He is on ability, but ability only takes you so far. I think he has a work rate issue, not just in the team in terms of keeping shape, tracking back and helping out. I think it's his general demeanor and work rate. Now, I think the manager has done everything in his power to get him back. People say, well, he went away for 3 months, came back and still didn't get the starts that we expected. I just don't see the mileage and I don't understand the logic for Ten Hag to come out and make this up. Whether it's right or wrong for him to say it is a separate conversation for just a moment. I don't see what he gains because I think if a manager lies and says Sancho hasn't been training to the standards and has done it publicly, typically it's when it's been done multiple times and the manager's lost his temper now. But it's got to a point where it's like, do you know what? I'm not protecting you anymore. The fans want to know why you're not playing or why you're not starting games. I can't keep lying to them and saying that it's because of injuries or because this isn't ready or that's not ready. I've got to tell them it's because you're not hitting certain standards. I don't see why a manager would lie in doing this because I feel if he's lying, the squad's going to know. The other you know as well as I do, whether it's your football team or the Sunday League, or whether it's a workplace you've been in, you all know the slackers. You all know the people that cut the corners. We all know. And if a manager comes out and disciplines somebody publicly who you all know isn't slacking and works hard, that manager's in trouble because the rest of you are going to turn. You're like, hang on, if you can throw him under the bus, you can throw any of us under the bus. So that's why I just don't believe Ten Hag has lied. Equally, Sancho might feel like it's a little bit harsh and he's reacted to the situation. But Man United can't let Sancho win this situation because for me, player power will ensue, player power will take over, and it will become a bigger problem than it needs to be, in my view. It has to be nipped in the bud. And it's either for me now, Sancho comes out and apologizes, or they have to sell him. Or they have to move him on.
Also think you just mentioned about slackers and all that, yeah? But if the slacker, because I was a slacker, because I was more talented at my job than 99% of the people that worked in the same company. But I delivered. But this is the thing. How can he deliver? What's the most amount of starts in a row that guy has had at your club?
I don't know that, but
because I guarantee it's around 8 to 10.
So it might be along those lines. But let me. What I did do is look at a stat yesterday. Because his team have claimed he hasn't been given enough opportunities. So I looked at the numbers. Premier League minutes since Anthony signed, because their claim is that Anthony's getting preferential treatment. Premier League minutes since Anthony signed. Jadon Sancho 1,775. Anthony 2,129. That's the equivalent of 4 additional games more Anthony has played than Sancho. So I understand he may feel that he's not had a fair run, and I think that's a fair challenge. My fight back as a Man United fan would be, what have you done in those games to warrant starting? He's had 1 or 2 good performances in the last 12 months in a Man United shirt. And I know people say, so go on.
No, I was going to say, but if you don't start him, if you said to him, you got 10 starts, mate, go and do your thing. You can't expect him to come on for 15 minutes at an end of a game and hope that it's going to work. It doesn't always work like that. We know that, right? But then if you start him for 10, let's say even 6, 7 games in a row, then you'll get a level of confidence back in him and a level of performance. And when he's more talented than most of the people you have on the wing, the output should get better the longer them starts come. But if at the end of them 6 to 8 starts or 9 to 10 starts or whatever, he's not doing it, you sit the guy down and say, bro, gave you 8 to 10 starts, you ain't really delivering what we need, so I'm going to put you on the bench again and bring you on as an impact sub. Yeah, not only that, you've got to also look that a lot of his games, I think, he's played on the left. He ain't a left winger, he's a right winger. Yeah, Dortmund, he played most of his good work was on the right. So when you're comparing him to Anthony, is Anthony still on the pitch when he's coming on?
So this is what I say to you in terms of starts, right? So I've just gone back to last season rather than this year. So you can transfer.co.uk really good because they show you the minutes somebody played in the game. So he started last season, the first 9 games of the season. Then he was on the bench for the 10th game. And then he started the next 3. Then he went off to the mountains. And then when he came back, he came on against Leeds as a sub. And then he started against Leeds away. Started on the bench against Leicester. And then was on the bench against Liverpool in the drum-in. Then the next 8 games, he started 7 of them. He's had he's had enough starts like that. And again, I know you're only asking a question, but it's because the pictures painted by Sancho fanboys. When's he been given his chance? Well, he started the first 10 games of last season and didn't do very much. He started the majority. In fact, if you actually look from when he came back after being in the mountains, he played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He played in 16 Premier League games. And he was only on the bench for 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So 12 of the last 16 games he started. And in that period, he got 2 assists and 4 goals, which isn't bad, but the performances weren't there. And this is the thing for me. I feel he's been given chances. I feel that he's been given ample opportunity, generally speaking. Now, look, I thought he did okay in that false.
The issue is with him then. It's just a case of he just ain't got it mentally in terms of, I'm at Man United. I have to raise I watched a video of Paul Scholes last night. Yeah, and he was saying, when I'm seeing Veron turn up at Man United, I'm thinking, wow, this is make or break for me then. Yeah, he goes, and I just thought, wow, I ain't getting dropped. Yeah, I ain't getting dropped. And he raised his game, and we all know how great Scholes he was. Yeah, certain players just don't have that mentality. Yeah, it's, oh my God, Anthony's here. Oh, well, that's the end of me then. And then they just do the bare minimum to get their way out. Maybe he's got that. I don't know. Terry, we're not privy enough to be in training every day.
I'll give you my opinion in a second. But Staffy here says because Anthony was out injured, lol. But that doesn't mean, again, fair enough. So he only got his starts because Anthony was injured. How does that stop Sancho from performing? It's not an excuse. Whether you get the chance through injury or you get listen, Marcus Rashford, not everyone's his biggest fan, but he only got those starts in the games against Arsenal and Midtjylland, then Arsenal, because of multiple injuries. But he grabbed those opportunities with both hands and has never looked back. And in my opinion, he had 1 poor season. I know he's not everyone's fan. Safi, I love you, bro.
This is similar to Pepe at Arsenal. Pepe,
I love you, Staffy.
Price.
Let me just finish my point. Sorry. I love you, Staffy. You're a great guy. But he got the starts. Anthony being out injured didn't mean if he'd have gone in and been class, he'd have kept his place in the team. I just don't believe in this favoritism nonsense. To answer your question earlier around why do you think it happens, I think there's unseen things that we only ignore if it's a player we love not getting started. I think there are instructions from managers about keeping shape, how much ground they want you to cover, what you need to do in the job. And it's nuanced stuff that I don't think we sometimes see as football fans, especially watching on television. I think there's training standards a part of it, discipline standards a part of it. And I think there's certain boxes that Sancho doesn't tick. And back to your point, because he's not a top deliverer, you can't get away with it. If he was in the team banging in goals, I see some of his fanboys say, but Rashford sometimes don't track back. You're right, and it annoys me too. But Rashford banged in 30 goals last season that helped us. Unless you're going to deliver those kind of numbers, you're never going to get away. The reason
comparison to Anthony, yeah, it's like.
But Anthony, no, listen. So I'm not defending him with Anthony. Anthony, I don't want in the team either. But the one thing about Anthony, which most Man United fans would agree with, is he keeps the shape. He gets back and helps defenders. He works. He ticks those boxes. But for me, it isn't like I don't like the Anthony Sancho argument as a United fan. For me, it's a micro penis competition. For me, it's like what we should have done in the summer is potentially looked at somebody, gone and bought Elise and given him a go. Like, I'd like us to rectify these mistakes quicker. That my fear at my club right now isn't about Sancho. The argument with Sancho is about should it have been played out in public. For me, we should have allowed the club should have sold him, but we can't. And we've been told today by we can't. No clubs are willing to pay him his wages. We're not willing to pay the contract off, and he ain't willing to cancel it. Therefore, the manager's stuck with a player that he doesn't really see as part of his future. Equally, yeah, no, and I get that. And this is why I spoke about this the other day when everyone's turning on the manager. We've still got legacy problems at this club. Some of them are still here from LVG in 2015 that haven't been resolved yet.
He's sitting there seeing Anthony not really doing much better, if better at all, in terms of output. Yeah, because his output's dead, Anthony's. Yeah, and then
I agree.
He's being told nobody's prepared nobody's going to pay you or whatever, or maybe they priced him out of a move. Yeah, and wanted 65 million when they paid 68 or 70 for him. Yeah, he's run a couple of years off his contract. I know prices have gone mad, but if you don't want the player in your squad, then get rid. Yeah, and if there's teams in for him, which there has been in the last two windows, just get rid, get 300 grand off the wage bill. Yes, the next team might not pay.
I agree with you. So I agree with you, but that isn't a Ten Hag issue. Ten Hag was open. What the reports have told us, we can only go by the reports, unless somebody else, is that we were willing to let him go, but we wanted £45 million. But Chelsea were the only club that came in with any serious interest. They weren't prepared to spend 45 million, and they weren't prepared to give him 350 grand a week. So the player's going to say no to the contract, and Man United's board, the owners, have said no to anything less than 45 million.
Stuck with him for the next 3 years then.
But this is what I mean by legacy problems. This happens a lot. And even with Anthony, listen, I want Anthony. This isn't about defending Anthony. I don't want him starting either. I actually would rather, if someone asked me now, who do you want to start the next game? I'd pick Palestri over both of them to start, because at least give him a go. In my opinion, Anthony's getting to a point where he's almost had enough time now. He's got to start delivering more. Sancho's had enough opportunities and hasn't delivered. And now what we're starting to hear about is behavioral issues or attitude problems in training. And I don't mean he has an attitude as a person. I'm just talking about his attitude towards training as opposed in general. But for me, it's okay. This needs to be resolved. It needs to be resolved swiftly by the club. And they've got to, again, this isn't about defending Ten Hag. This is about defending the position of manager. And I said this back in Jose's day. If the board back Pogba and Martial over Jose, you will set alight player power issues at the club, which, in my opinion, still exist at the club now. 6-7 years later, you need to nip this in the bud. It's important.